Libya blocks entry for Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia nationals. Authorities in eastern Libya have announced a ban on the entry of citizens from Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia, in a move widely seen as an attempt to curb the growing flow of migrants using the country's Mediterranean coast as a gateway to Europe. Libya remains one of the main transit routes for migrants from North Africa and the Horn of Africa seeking to reach European shores in search of better living conditions. Many of them are transported by human traffickers in overcrowded and unsafe boats, with thousands losing their lives during the dangerous crossing. The announcement issued on Tuesday night states that nationals of the four countries will not be permitted to enter Libya through any land, sea, or air checkpoints. However, exemptions will apply to diplomats, as well as professionals working in sectors such as healthcare and education. In a parallel development, both eastern and western Libya have in recent months witnessed increased restrictions and public hostility toward refugees, along with widespread crackdowns. Rights groups, including Amnesty International, have reported mass arrests affecting thousands of migrants. United Nations estimates suggest that more than 900,000 migrants and refugees are currently present in Libya, with Sudanese nationals forming the largest group. Many attempt to reach Europe via Libya, but interception at sea often results in their return to Libyan territory. Once detained, migrants are frequently held in state-run facilities where international organizations have documented serious abuses, including forced labor, violence, sexual abuse, and torture, acts that UN-backed investigators have described as amounting to crimes against humanity. Kenya deports Somali deputy prime minister after immigration dispute, sources say. Somalia's deputy prime minister Jibril Abdirashid Haji was reportedly denied entry into Kenya and deported over allegations that he fraudulently obtained a Kenyan passport, sources said. The incident occurred Wednesday evening at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, where Haji arrived on a Sasid Airlines flight from Mogadishu. According to immigration sources, Haji presented a valid Somali diplomatic passport and entry visa upon arrival. However, officers allegedly flagged him after suspecting he was also in possession of a Kenyan passport, believed to have been acquired fraudulently. Sources familiar with the matter said the Somali official acknowledged having the Kenyan passport, but declined to surrender it to immigration authorities, insisting that the matter be handled through a court process. Senior immigration officials later held Haji at the JKIA VIP lounge while checks into his travel documents continued, the sources said. He was later escorted onto a Dallo Airlines flight bound for Mogadishu, effectively denying him entry into Kenya. Neither the Kenyan nor Somali governments had issued an official public statement on the incident by the time of publication. However, a senior official at Kenya's Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed the deportation. A police report on the incident said Haji departed on June 25, 2026 at 6:45 a.m. with no incident reported. The incident could trigger a fresh diplomatic dispute between Kenya and Somalia. It came during a week in which Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud was in Kenya for talks with President William Ruto. The reported deportation also follows a separate development in Europe, where the European Union introduced temporary restrictions, making it harder for Somali citizens to obtain Schengen visas. The EU cited what it described as Somalia's insufficient cooperation in accepting the return of Somali nationals illegally staying in EU member states. The Council of the European Union said How Ethiopian Prime Minister's party easily wins parliamentary election. Nobel Peace Prize winner will stay in power, as analysts warn of renewed conflicts. Ethiopia's Prosperity Party has comfortably won another parliamentary majority in this month's elections, with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed set to keep the top job. The Nobel Peace Prize winner had been widely expected to win the national elections, as his Prosperity Party candidates campaigned on the government's economic record and on improving food security in a country that has experienced several famines in the past. Abiy, who was appointed in 2018 following mass protests against the long-ruling Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, EPRDF coalition, created the Prosperity Party the following year. The party won more than 90% of the available seats in the last parliamentary elections in 2021. The Ethiopian leader received widespread praise at home and around the world for freeing journalists, activists, and other political prisoners and revoking bans on many political parties after taking power. He was honored with the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019 for ending hostilities with neighboring Eritrea. But his opponents and human rights activists accuse his government of reversing those gains in recent years by detaining journalists and shutting down civil society groups. Ethiopia has faced years of violent unrest in several of the country's ethnically organized regions, including Abiy's native Oromia, Ethiopia's largest and the second biggest region, Amhara, where militia known as Fano has seized swathes of the countryside since 2023. A civil war in the northern Tigray region from 2020 to 2022, which stemmed from a breakdown in relations between Abiy and the Tigrayan leaders who dominated national politics before his rise, resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths, researchers say. Though a 2022 peace deal ended the conflict, Tigray's main political party moved in May to reassert control over the region's political administration in violation of the agreement. That has led Ethiopian officials and analysts to warn of the risk of fresh unrest. The elections were not held in Tigray, one of Ethiopia's 12 regions, because of what the Electoral Board called unfavorable conditions there. Abiy's government projects economic growth of over 10% in 2026, one of the fastest rates. EU imposes new visa restrictions on Somali citizens. The European Union has temporarily tightened visa rules for Somali citizens, citing insufficient cooperation from Somalia in the readmission of its nationals who are staying illegally in EU member states. According to an official EU document obtained by the Shabo Media Network, member states have been instructed to suspend the issuance of multiple entry visas to Somali citizens. The restriction does not apply to holders of diplomatic and official service passports, including senior government officials. The EU has also extended the standard processing period for visa applications submitted by Somali nationals from 15 days to 45 days, significantly increasing waiting times for applicants. European authorities said the measures were adopted following an assessment of Somalia's cooperation on the return and readmission of irregular migrants. Brussels concluded that progress in this area had not met expectations, prompting the bloc to activate provisions under its visa policy framework. The restrictions are temporary and do not have a specified end date, the EU said, adding that the measures could be reviewed depending on future developments. The European Union stressed that the decision is intended to encourage the Somali government to improve collaboration on the repatriation of its citizens residing unlawfully in Europe. EU institutions and member states will continue to monitor Somalia's performance on the issue before considering any changes to the measures. The move is expected to affect Somali travelers seeking business, educational, family, and tourism visas to countries within the EU Schengen area. Thank you for staying with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Ethio-Eritrea Index channel.